WICR Sports.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to WICR's official coverage of today's NFL Draft. A lot of great storylines. Please stick with us here. We're starting off right now with our pre-show, 8 o'clock. We'll be bringing you coverage throughout the entirety of tonight's draft. Kevin Walsh here alongside David Giacomino. Dave, how are you?
Doing good. Looking forward to a good draft tonight.
Oh, yes, as am I. Obviously, always exciting around draft time. And, looking at the way the teams are right now, I really feel like every single team's pick is important. Even the defending champion Patriots, well, with the 32 overall selection, they have some needs in the loss of Darrelle Revis and, certain pieces. Even all the way down to the last pick of this first round, everyone's pick is going to be very, very important.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see who's going to be the next Odell Beckham Jr., who's going to be that guy taken in the middle rounds or the first rounds, and who's going to become a flat-out star. And we had a lot of candidates here in this draft, so I'm really looking to see who's going to come out.
Now, you mentioned potential stars, and the two biggest names in this draft, it's obvious. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. 2 years ago, Winston wins the Heisman and the national championship. Last season, Mariota doesn't win the national championship, wins that Heisman trophy. They find themselves as the two most capturing players in the entire draft, probably the two most exciting players, especially considering the fact that they are quarterbacks. So, Dave, if you were on the clock at 1, you taking which one?
Both of these QBs are different. Both of them have a lot of baggage with them. Jameis Winston has a lot of all-field issues. Marcus Mariota, a lot of people say he's a system quarterback. You got to go with Jameis Winston here, I think, if you have the first overall pick at Tampa Bay Bucks. He's the more polished QB, in my opinion. He ran an NFL system at Florida State. I think he's a flat-out better player.
Well, see, for me, I think this is it's a very interesting debate. As an Eagle fan, with Chip Kelly, and you notice what Mariota is and everything. I think it's very, very interesting. The thought of what Mariota can do in this league. I'm very, very curious to see what type of player he will be. However, I do think that Jameis Winston is the correct choice, especially for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with this number 1 overall pick. When you look at Winston's measurements and his just on-the-field talent, it outweighs those off-the-field struggles. He's had an IQ compared to Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and I really think that he's going to get his act together as well when he goes into the NFL. I think he's a smart guy. He knows, all right, I'm going to be the head of an NFL franchise. I'm going to be the starting QB. Let's get my act together. And I think he's going to start to do that off the field, and he's going to play well on the field like he always does.
Now I'm curious though. Here, so say if we're both the GMs, we're taking Winston 1. However, number 2 pick is where things get very, very interesting. The Titans have the option of selecting their franchise quarterback in Marcus Mariota. They have the option of maybe getting a defensive cornerstone in Leonard Williams, Dante Fowler Jr., or even if they wanted a star receiver in Amari Cooper with that number 2 overall selection. However, they could turn themselves around and trade away this pick. We've heard the Jets. Obviously, we've heard the Eagles. We've heard the Browns. I even heard today that the Bears want to get in on the mix. The Redskins were talked about a little bit ago. I mean, those are 5 different franchises, all different offers. The number 2 pick is yours. You're the Titans. What are you doing?
It's really hard not to trade this pick, in my opinion, because there's so much value in the pick because so many teams want it. You already got teams offering 2 first-round picks this year for it, and you turn that down. This pick is worth so much. We saw that a few years ago when it was traded with the RG3 draft. This pick is so valuable. If you're taking Mariota at this pick, if you're the Titans, you have to know, all right, he's the guy, and he's going to pan out good. You want him as a QB. You have to be sure with this pick.
And that's the thing. I don't think they can be certain. And the thing is, when you're bringing in a young rookie quarterback, you really don't want to have him just enter a full rebuilding stage. It's not the NBA where you say, all right, we are at the bottom, let's get our Andrew Wiggins and let's rebuild for now. You can't really do that, especially with the quarterback position. You think about Andrew Luck, and he walked into a favorable team in regards to the Colts. Yes, they obviously were the number one pick for a reason. However, they're not a terrible team. They had good pieces. You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was interesting to see them fall. A lot of people had them as a surprise team to make the playoffs. They have decent receivers. They have a decent defense and a solid offensive line. Jameis Winston actually might be the missing piece that could potentially lead the Bucs to a playoff position, especially out in the NFC South. However, I don't think the Titans have that type of certainty.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, if you take Marcus Mariota with this pick, you know, how much better are you really getting, because he's not going to have the supporting cast. And like I said, that's the big question. Is he a system quarterback? You're going to put him in a real offense, and how is he going to fare? Is he going to do well? Is he going to take some time to learn? It's all big questions, and you have to, like, I don't know. I do not think that they should take him with the number 2 pick. I think they should trade it.
But I think it's, again, I don't think it's really as much of it's Mariota's fault. I just think when you look really at this Titans roster, they're not ready to support a brand new quarterback. Yeah. I really think that it's a waste of a pick with Mariota for them, because he's not going to win right away. You're not going to be making the playoffs right away. And you know what? That's bad for quarterbacks. It starts to add doubt in them, the franchise. It puts pressure that you get from the fans, and things start to become very, very interesting.
Yeah, and in that scenario, the quarterback loses confidence, and confidence is everything for your QB. Once you lose your confidence, then you're basically done. You know, you throw some interceptions, you have some fumble, the team just goes downhill. Once you lose confidence, the whole team loses confidence. If you had the number 2 pick, who would you pick besides Marcus Mariota? Who do you want the Titans to pick if they weren't going to trade it?
I think their best selection would be Leonard Williams, the defensive lineman out of USC.
Yeah, a lot of people have him as the best overall prospect in the whole draft.
And the thing is, when it comes to a defensive player being ranked as the best overall prospect, you really can't go wrong, barring there be no injuries. Obviously we saw Jadeveon Clowney get hit with the injury bug, and it kind of derailed his rookie season. But the Titans, you can't go wrong with some defensive help. You're going to need it in the future. Why not get it now and wait until you have yourself a certain clear-cut franchise quarterback? Let's be honest here. The Titans are going to be picking in the top 5 for the next couple of years, more likely than not. I don't think they need to rush on Mariota when they can get themselves some nice corner pieces in someone like Leonard Williams.
Do you think if the San Diego Chargers come out and say, I'll give you Phillip Rivers and our number 1, do you do that?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I don't think they would be giving him Phillip Rivers on the 1. I think it would just really be a Phillip Rivers more deal. And if I'm the Titans, for me, the trade offer that I really would have been absolutely all in for was the Browns offering picks 12 and 19. Yeah, that's 2 first-rounders. This is a very deep draft, and you can get yourself a lot of talent at those 2 picks.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. The report is that they declined it right away, and they want more, and that's very dicey. You have an opportunity to get 2 first-round picks, and if you score well with the 12th pick, we saw Odell Beckham went around that area last year. You could find a sleeper in the draft, and you could have a superstar potential if you pick the right guy.
And I think the reason why the Titans are holding back is because they're pretty certain that the Eagles might really sell a lot in order to get Marcus Mariota. I mean, I'm hearing that the Eagles maybe are even trying to move up to 1 if the Titans don't make a deal with them.
I just don't see how the scenario is possible, because they have to get rid of Bradford in that scenario, and no team is going to trade for him, because he already came out and said he's not going to sign an extension. And why would anybody trade for Bradford if he's on a 1-year deal and his future is uncertain? You're just not going to give up that value for the player that's on the future is not certain there. It wouldn't be a smart decision.
Well, I think interestingly enough, I heard that the Browns are very interested in getting themselves Sam Bradford. Apparently, they made a run at the quarterback while he was with the Rams, and the Rams decided that the Eagles put together a better package, considering that they were give them Nick Foles, who actually could be, I still think a franchise quarterback. I'm not going to act like I don't think Nick Foles is really good because he's gone. But I think he's really, really good. And it'll be very, very interesting to see if the Eagles make that move.
I definitely think they need to make a move, because going into the season with Bradford in that system, I don't see a fit there. He's never been the type to have a big rush. He's never like a high tempo kind of guy. I just don't see the fit there. I think they're going to trade him somehow. This during the draft. I think something's going to happen with the Eagles because I don't see them going into the draft with Sam Bradford as a QB.
Oh, well, I definitely don't know if Sam Bradford will be their quarterback by the end of the draft. I think that's the point I'm trying to make there, and I agree because all signs point towards chaos.
Yeah.
For the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think it comes down to when the Titans are on the clock and bam, I think they're going to trade that pick when they're on the clock. I don't think they're going to get rid of it before.
I think, and I'm pretty certain, like I said, we will be here for, the whole draft. And, once 8 o'clock rolls around, we'll be ready to go, and we're pretty much just going to have all of our Jameis Winston notes ready to talk about his fit in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer offense, because that's really what everyone feels is the consensus number 1 overall pick. However, when this number 2 pick, when that clock starts ticking down, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how many notes you have ready. There is no telling what happens.
No,
because not only do you know who the Titans will pick, you don't know who's even gonna pick.
Exactly, and the whole draft is waiting to see what happens because the number 2 pick is going to tell everything. And once finally the number 2 pick happens, then we can kind of, we can see what's going to happen. Everything's going to unfold with the number 3 pick, 4 pick. Then we can kind of guess what's going to happen once we know who's picking when.
Exactly, because, you have a team like the Oakland Raiders, and they're pretty high on Amari Cooper. And the thing is, though, the Jaguars are stuck between Cooper and Williams. Well, what if Williams goes too? They're not touching Mariota. They got Blake Bortles. So they take Cooper. Now the Raiders are saying to themselves, do we trust Kevin White as much, or are we going to go defense? And then someone else says, well, there goes the 2 best defensive players. We were sold on them. All right, we got to trade back. And now all of a sudden they're trading back, and then the Jets get on the clock. Do we want Todd Gurley injury prone? Marcus Mariota still there? What? What do we do? All of a sudden you never know, and that's why this 2 pick really, really, really will dictate how this draft will go.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't put it any better than that. And I'm really interested to see what happens here because anything can happen in this draft. There's going to be trades. There's been trades the past couple of years. It's just when it's going to happen.
Yeah. Now, let's move on over. I just mentioned them briefly there. We are obviously reporting in New York, so we gotta, let's speak about the 2 New York teams, and we'll start off with the Jets. They made some off-season acquisitions. Amazingly, got themselves Brandon Marshall for a 6th-round pick, which was, I think, one of the biggest steals I've ever heard of, because Brandon Marshall can flat out still play. Last year, I think Jay Cutler had a really, really bad season, which is why you're hearing about the Bears potentially moving up for Mariota. Excuse me. And they also went out, get Darrelle Revis, Cromartie, shore up the secondary, and they got Ryan Fitzpatrick to add to the quarterback situation. Now, if you're on the clock with the Jets, they have the 6th pick, what do you think the Jets' best move is?
I think the best move is to get a pass rusher here. It's either you have to go pass rusher or wide receiver because you cannot never have too many wide receivers in a particular offense. And the Jets don't really have a pass rusher that it's 3rd and long, go sack somebody. Go get a sack. I think you have to go either those 2. Marcus Mariota, I don't think is going to be there. If he's there, it's going to be very intriguing to take him because he can, and he has a lot of weapons if they take Marcus Mariota that he can show some stardom in it. And I think they're gonna go pass rusher or wide receiver. I think either it's gonna be Vic Beasley or Kevin White because I think Mari Cooper will be gone.
I think for the New York Jets, I think if Marcus Mariota is there, trade the pick. You're gonna still get a decent amount of value because I think that although as awful as Geno has been, it doesn't hurt to give him a chance to earn this starting position. Because if he doesn't, I truly trust Ryan Fitzpatrick to be a decent enough quarterback to where I'm not pointing the finger at him after every single game we lose.
Yeah, and we saw last year, and I think this is in Todd Bowles' mind. He won 12 games without basically a QB for half the season. He had Carson Palmer go down, injury after injury at the quarterback position, and he said, all right, the defense won the majority of the games. Mm-hmm. I have a great defense here with the Jets.
A phenomenal defense.
I think he can win a majority of his games behind his defense, and I think that's what his mindset is going to this draft. He doesn't need a QB. He doesn't need Marcus Mariota. He just needs a good overall roster.
And this is the thing though, as amazing as that defense looks, obviously on paper, but as good as it looks, the weapons on offense are, I'm not going to say as impressive, but they're impressive.
Yeah.
The thought of being able to throw to Marshall and Decker, I think, is very, very nice.
Yeah, you got Marshall.
I trust their offensive line for the most part. Not in love with their running back situation, which is why I think you've heard about Todd Gurley as a possibility.
Yeah, and the wide receivers are awesome. You have Curley, you didn't even mention, in the slot, which he's a great slot receiver. It's just when you have those weapons, that's something the Jets didn't have the past few years. And they finally have weapons on offense and the wide receiver position. They had flashes at the tight end. They had their offensive line was shaky last year, but they got a couple of guys to to get it back together. And I think if they put some good pieces in this draft, they'll be set for a solid season.
I think it's very intriguing because to me, I don't think the Jets can do any wrong this year. I literally think the only bad decision that they could make would be to take Marcus Mariota.
Another you didn't even mention. There are talks about trading Muhammad Wilkerson, and I have no idea why they are thinking of doing this. But he's one of the best young players in the league on defense, and he wants a new contract. He's not reported the voluntary camp, and there's talks of trading him, and they're listening to offers, but I just don't know why, because he's an outstanding player. He's showing flashes of stardom. He's going to be a star in this league for many years to come, and I can't think of why they trade him.
I tell you though, if they get themselves a first round, and what I'm telling you is a really nice draft, they might be able to get themselves the elite pass rusher that would really solidify the whole defense in 6, and then they can get themselves a really nice wide receiver, or maybe get Todd Gurley a bit later and make this team a real contender to make some noise this season.
Yeah, and no, their running back position was not bad, and they made a move. They got the Patriots running back, and he's coming off an ACL injury. We'll see what happens there. I think their running back position is underrated. They were pretty good last year with the bad QB, because they knew the defenses knew, all right, they're gonna go behind this run game. They're not gonna throw the ball as much, and they were still pretty good. So I don't think they need to address that this early in the draft. They can kind of wait on that. I don't think they need to take an injury-prone Todd Gurley.
I personally wouldn't touch Gurley until the later. Later of it.
I just don't think it makes any sense, because they don't need a running back badly. So I think they should stay away from that. Their biggest need is a pass rusher.
Now let's go over to the same field, different team. The New York Giants also will be picking at the 9th spot, and there's a lot of talk about them taking an offensive lineman, and I think it's the perfect selection.
Yeah.
When you think about the team, they have Odell Beckham Jr. and a returning Victor Cruz behind 2-time Super Bowl MVP Eli Manning. Just give him time. He's probably going to make some good plays. These, last few seasons, Eli hasn't looked like Eli necessarily. It's been a lot of interceptions and a lot of uncertainty. However, when him and Beckham started to click, things looked pretty nice over in New York.
Yeah, and I think the biggest two things that we've seen the last couple of seasons is he's had no offensive line and he's had no run game, and it got pretty predictable that, all right, send everybody. He's going to throw the ball. They can't run it. So just send everyone. We're going to get to him eventually because the offensive line is not good. Yeah. So that's clearly the biggest need. I think that's pretty much what they're going to go. They need an offensive lineman, and it's the smart pick, and it's the right pick.
Yeah, and I think the ideal player for them is Mr. Brandon Scherf, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. He's considered the best offensive lineman in the entire class, and their really only concern is someone taking them before them. Yeah,
and in that scenario, there's plenty of there's
always offensive linemen.
Exactly. So no, they're not going to be in trouble in this draft. I'm not worried about them.
Now, this is a topic that I wanted to touch on here because I think for some reason it's a little more prominent than other years. There have already been 2 elite top prospects, Shane Ray and I believe the other is Randy Gregory. I'm not sure if you've heard about this.
Yeah.
Both busted for marijuana within their drug tests, and it's going to potentially hurt their draft stock. I believe it's Ray is already going to start off in the first level of rehab or something along those lines when you get before everything. And you know, what are your thoughts on that? How, the cause of concern, the fact that it could hurt their draft stock. Your just overall thoughts on the topic.
I don't know how. First of all, they let this happen. These are great players, and Shane Ray was on SportsCenter the other day, and they seem like he was doing all the right things, and then this happens. How do you let this happen? You're about to go into an NFL draft. Teams are watching your every move to see if you slip up and do something, and then you do this. It screams alert. Do not draft him high at all. It'd be a stupid pick to draft high. You can't do it.
And I think, one person who has kind of been the unfortunate role model for this situation is his name was literally just there. The Browns receiver.
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon. Could not remember. Thank you. Josh Gordon has received chance after chance after chance and has managed to blow all of them.
And that's hurting these players. Is they're saying, oh, is this going to happen again? And even Johnny Manziel, you can throw him into the mix. Like, they had the same question marks about him, and he had a lot of bad things happen last season, and he ended up going into rehab after the season. And it's just you don't want the mess that comes with it. And why would you waste a first round pick with a mess that's going to come with it? It's just not worth it.
I will say, I think it's very sad to see, players not having the strength to stay away from these drugs, and the right mindset to know that their future is on the line. But if I were to look at it from a semi-bright side of things, I think it might be better that it happens to them now than later. Because, right now, they're in college, and, you have to understand the college atmosphere. There's always a lot of partying going on there. You're around that stuff. And, it's upon you, and I'm not giving them a break, but what I'm saying is, it's better to learn this lesson before you're in the NFL, because once you get in the NFL, you start hitting, the clubs with teammates and things like that, and the real hard stuff gets put in your face, and you got to have the strength to say no. And when you realize that you were a top 5 pick, and now you're in the second round getting, being taken by a team that never thought you'd even be available, you have an opportunity to be, a great player in this league. And you need to just realize, I messed up once. This team's giving me the chance. I owe them everything, and I'm going to be the best player I can, and I'm going to stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you're a team picking, you don't know that the guy's going to have that mindset. You say to yourself, yeah, you should have that mindset, but you have to go ahead and do it. And a lot of these teams, the first round selection is basically the role model for the rest of the draft class. And do you really want to take someone like this that has question marks with your first round pick? That's why we both said they might end up going to the second round, because the first round pick is just so valuable. You don't want to waste the pick on it, because they're potential superstars throughout the whole first round if you pick the right guy. And these players are losing millions of dollars going from a potential top 10 pick to a second round pick. It's not smart decisions. And like you said, they're around partying all the time in college, but you have guys watching you constantly. You're not going to have that in the NFL. You're going to be on your own, do what you want. But you gotta have the wherewithal to say, all right, no, not me. Can't do it.
But I'll tell you, these teams kind of now know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
These teams that were looking at a player like Shane Ray will have the chance to give him a call and say, hey, listen, we really like you. You're an amazing player. SEC Defensive Player of the Year. We're talking about the SEC. That's legit. That's as legit as it gets. And you look at him and you say, listen, you're an amazing talent. You're a future Pro Bowler. You got to be able to keep yourself straight, and we're going to do everything that we can, but we need your word. And it'll put it into perspective for these guys. But I tell you, a talent like that lands in round 2. I don't care what my needs are. I'm taking him.
Yeah.
With the 33rd overall pick, if Shane Ray's there, I think you gotta grab that type of talent, because it doesn't belong there. You got lucky. Make sure he knows his lesson and take him.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it'd be smart to do that too. And that's why I think maybe even teams late in the first round might end up taking him, because they don't want him to get past them and go to the second round. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I could definitely see the second round pick. Yeah, I'm willing to take a risk on a guy to be a potential superstar, but it has some question marks. Yeah, I'll definitely be willing to take a second round pick on that.
I mean, these guys. I mean, Shane Ray specifically, because he was most. I mean, that's a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
You find him in round 2, you're foolish to pass.
I don't think he'll get to round 2 though. I think someone's gonna take him late in the first round.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate because I say unfortunate. Kind of more as a fan, but in all honesty, Shane Ray might find himself in a winning franchise, and it's actually very good for him.
Yeah, and it makes his life that much easier because the attention won't be on him necessarily if the team is winning. If he goes to a losing team, then the center of attention is going to be more on him. Is he doing this right? Is he doing it? How's his off-field behavior? If it's good for him that the attention won't be on him as much if he goes to a late in the first round winning team, and I could see a team like I don't know if he's going to get to him with the Patriots.
Oh, I mean, at 32, I'm telling you, if he's there, they have cornerback concerns, and if whoever their number 1 cornerback is still available, I think they might go with him. But cause, they have a solid linebacking core, but someone along those lines, I definitely agree with you, would not make the mistake of letting Shane Ray go too far.
Yeah, and I think that'd be a perfect environment to go to if that was a guy like him. Bill Belichick, he'll get him in check. He'll say, like, listen, you're on the Patriots. This is the Patriots way. You better do it right or you're gone.
And see, that's the thing about a coach like Bill Belichick. The second Ray messes up, goodbye.
Yeah.
It's not even a hesitation. The name of the running back escapes me, but he had 200+ yards, 4 touchdowns. And all of a sudden, this kid didn't see Jonas Gray. It was Jonas Gray. 200+ yards, 4 touchdowns. He didn't see the field the rest of the year because he overslept and came late to practice.
Yeah, and everybody knows that's how he is. And that's right. He's right. He wants to have something done his way. He should. And there's no fault. I agree with what he did. He brought in Blunt. Bam. Took over, and the kid never saw the field again.
Now, we mentioned a lot of different storylines here, but I just want to ask you, just what is one storyline, something that you're going to kind of have your eye on coming into this draft?
Everyone's going to say the number 2 pick.
Yeah, other than...
Yeah. I want to see where these guys end up, Who's going to necessarily make that big, bold move to trade up? I want to... Not even necessarily the number 2 pick. Just who's going to trade up and get someone that they need. Who's going to make the bold move? Because there's always trades in this draft. I want to see who's going to go where, who's going to make that trade. I think the Eagles are going to prime time going to make a trade.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. For me, I'm going to be very, very interested to see just on a on a single team level. I think that the Oakland Raiders have the chance to make a very, very impact decision here, because at some people feel like they are high on Kevin White. Some other people feel like they like Amari Cooper. And Derek Carr last year was a very promising quarterback. And the Raiders, yes, were terrible, but they were better than their record. And with a declining Peyton Manning, and unsure Phillip Rivers, and a Kansas City Chiefs team that doesn't necessarily always seem to get the job done, it's not out of the question to think that if the Raiders get themselves a game changer, they maybe make a playoff push. And I know it's an early stretch, but I think if they find that elite receiver talent, whoever they think it is, I think it'll be very interesting to see what the Raiders do come the regular season.
Yeah, and they've always been missing on these receivers. We've seen them take receiver after receiver and just constantly miss. And it'll be interesting to see which one they take and if they pan out as well as they think they will, because they need a receiver. They need a star receiver. They haven't had one in years. Hayward Bay was awful pick. He was a top 5 pick. What awful pick, and they need someone to step up and be that guy for Derek Carr this year. I'm also interested to see where these running backs go in the draft. We've seen running back just been downgraded. The position is just not as valuable. No, not one running back taken in the first round last year. Just how far were they going to go? We've heard top 10 pick. We've heard as far as 20. Was where they're going to go. There's been so many scenarios about where these running backs are going to go. They're injury prone. I really want to see where they end up.
Do you if you're on the clock, you need a running back? Do you go with injury prone Gurley, or are you going to go Melvin Gordon?
I think the upside is with Gurley, even with the injury risk. It's tough. But I think I would go Gurley. He has a far more upside than than people think, and I think he's a better player than Melvin Gordon.
The reason why I think Todd Gurley is the correct selection for whatever team is going to be selecting the running back, I don't think anyone's taking a running back to be their franchise player. No one's taking, their Adrian Peterson. It doesn't mean they don't have the potential to be, but what I'm saying is, for what you're going to be expecting out of the running back you take, I think you go with Todd Gurley because it gives him time to get healthy, and I think, as you said, he reaches his upside and his potential. He might be a top 5, top 10 back in this whole league.
Yeah, and it could be like a potential steal if they get him like around 15 to 20. That's that slot. That could be a potential steal for a team that like the Dolphins that need a running back. There are a bunch of teams that need running backs. The 49ers who lost Frank Gore.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams out there that are missing running backs. Like the Giants, they can use a running back.
Absolutely.
And there's just so many teams. The Chargers. Just I don't know. I can name a handful of teams that need running backs.
Yes. There's really only a few running backs in this league that blow you away, and the rest are kind of just grouped together.
No, and we see with these teams that are able to do. If you have a dominant running back, that changes everything.
Man.
Then the
Look
play
at the Seahawks.
Exactly. The play action comes involved. You see, look at the Dallas Cowboys last year. DeMarco Murray has a breakout season. All of a sudden, the team is good. I don't think that's
changed everything.
I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Don't get me wrong. Tony Romo, great quarterback. The running back makes everybody better.
Absolutely.
And because then you gotta put more guys in the box, and then the one-on-one options outside open up. It just opens up so many things.
All right, now we are about to end our pre-show, set ourselves up for the NFL draft. I'm putting us both on the spot here, and we'll talk about it more during the show. Prediction. Tennessee Titans will A, make the pick and take Mariota, B, make the pick and take another person, or C, trade it away. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with they take the pick, take Marcus Mariota, and end up trading him. I think.
So you're picking A and C.
A and C.
Of course. Of course you are. Of course you are.
I think they're gonna take the pick, and if they get something that they think is a lot and they feel is right, enough value, trade him.
I think they've received too many offers on the selection to not trade it away, and the amount that they're hearing these offers, it shows they're not too high on Marcus. So my prediction is that the Tennessee Titans will not be making the selection at number 2.
Just throw it out there. Who do you think is going to trade up?
For number 2?
Yeah. Who do you think is going to be that one team to trade up?
If the Titans let them, I think it's going to be the Eagles. I think that they're dying to get Marcus.
I just don't think they have what it takes to trade up. They don't have enough.
I don't know if they do, but if I had to make a select, I think that would be the guys.
Yeah, it'd be a perfect scenario. Have DeMarco Murray and Marcus Mariota. It'd be a perfect scenario for them.
Absolutely. Now, that is all the time that we have on our pre-show, but stick with us here. We're going for a little 15-minute break and come right back here, 8 o'clock. We're doing WICR's official coverage of the NFL Draft.